All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to go and call this council meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Destin City Council, November 2nd, 2015. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and thank you for the blessings that you've given us this past year in our city. We ask you to watch over us here tonight, get us safely back to our families. Let the decisions we make tonight be fair and just for all parties, and we ask that you watch over our troops here and abroad. They're what keep this country, this state, and this city safe. We ask this in his name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Marler. A couple quick things, just as we've noted before, after item 3 will be a public opportunity to speak on council propositions, those will be 4 through item 17. Then also at the end of the evening, there's comments allowed from the audience. As we've stated by resolution, you have 5 minutes at that point in time to speak, and so if anyone wants to speak at the end of the evening, you'll have a chance to speak then if you don't speak ahead of time. Plus, we have 2 public hearings, and so we are out of blue cards tonight. So if you wish to speak on one of the public hearings, don't worry about filling a blue card out. We'll just call you to the mic if you'd like to come forward. All right? Okay, first up, item number 1, a request approval of minutes of the September 21st, 2015 regular city council meeting. First up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve with one minor change.
Okay.
On page 19 of 20, change 30 minutes, about 2 inches up from the bottom, from 30 to 3.
Second.
Okay, so a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Ramswell. Is there any discussion? Okay, see none, let's call the vote. Motion passes 6-1. Okay. We have 2 public hearings. First up, first reading of ordinance 15-12-LC, which amends the Land Development Code by designating automobile dealership as a permitted use in the Commercial General Zoning District. Mr. Miller, please read by title.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-12-LC by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to permitted uses within the Commercial General Zoning District, providing for authority, providing for the amendment of Land Development Code Section 7.12.06, Zoning Districts, Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses to provide for automobile dealers as an allowable use within the Commercial General Zoning District, providing for the incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Casella, anything to add?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. What this item is went to the local planning agency a few weeks ago, and I believe it was unanimous vote on the planning agency to deny the request. You've got quite a bit of commercial generals scattered through the city. And so we would recommend, staff recommends that you take no action on this proposed ordinance, consistent with what the LPA recommended to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Casella. This is a public hearing, so before we turn it over to council, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? Please come forward. State your name for the record. Sure. Yes, sir. All right, both. Yep. And there's a little kind of an oval button on that mic. If you can hit that and make it live, and then state your name for the record, please.
My name is Alan Rogers.
Mr. Rogers.
I'm with 1225 Airport Road, LLC, the owner of that address. We come before you with this change. I am the owner of the property in question. It was originally my intent over almost a year ago to address the city just as a zoning change for my piece of property. I did not intend to create a situation that was going to create the entire zoning of the city of Destin change. As stated in the minutes of that last meeting, we had not been addressed from January until just about a month ago. And it was really our intent to just be able to allow a small custom automobile dealership. It's really an internet purchasing type dealership to be allowed for use on our premises. Not a volume dealership, just a very small, limited number of custom vehicles, and it would be a custom buying service. In order to get that approved, we come before you today. So it's been quite a process of which I am a contractor, but I'm not really involved with this process very much. The reason I come before you is because, as staff had recommended, that it not be approved or not changed. If something could be changed just for my property, as it originally intended, that would be great. If not, since we're now reading to change the entire code for CG for the entire city of Destin, we're asking that that be approved. If you look in the commercial general code, which is the zoning district map or the direction of what the type of different businesses allowed in CG, part of the paperwork that we received for tonight's meeting says that CG is intended not to impact single-family detached or multifamily attached residential dwelling units, manufacturing of goods or other activities that may generate nuisance impacts, including glare, smoke, or other air pollutants, noise, vibration, or major fire hazards. And it says there that that is not allowed in that group. Whereas if you look at the group that has already been permitted and allowed as part of that group, it includes gasoline stations, it includes auto parts and accessories, tire stores, boat, vehicle, equipment, storage and leasing, automotive equipment rental and leasing, boat and motorcycle repair, automotive repair and maintenance, car washes, repair and maintenance, and so on, machinery and equipment rental and leasing. We believe that a small automobile dealership confined to a certain size lot or a certain number of sales per month, or however the council wants to address it, would be consistent with what the commercial general code does allow. I think someone needs to look at the commercial general code as saying all of these businesses are permitted uses, but yet it simply it goes against the direct description of what CG is. And if CG does not want to have air pollutants, noise, vibration, or major fire hazards, then how are we allowing motorcycle and vehicle repair and maintenance shops to be part of CG, whereas just a sales lot, which doesn't include any of those aspects? So there seems to be some bit of a contradiction as to what CG already allows versus what we're asking for. And I also wanted to point out that our location that we're asking for, our specific location, and I've not done the research to see, but our spec does not have any impact to any residential or future residential. We're surrounded by all commercial properties, similar to what is also found down Airport Road. I don't have anything further.
That's right, Mr. Rogers. Thank you. Does any staff, or city council, any questions, Mr. Rogers? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Appreciate your time. Next, Mr. Hall. Ms. Hall. And if you can hit the little button to make the mic live and just state your name for the record, please.
My name is Stan Hall. First of all, thank you for hearing us tonight on asking for a zoning change for something that we definitely think and don't quite understand. Reading what these people say, the city filers back whenever said they never wanted any car dealerships in the city of Destin. So to me, that seems a little bit on the prejudicial side, why you can allow all of these undesirable businesses today and from now on, tattoo parlors, car washes, etc. in this zoning, but you cannot allow a car dealership. So what did the city of Destin and the people rather see? A nice landscape building with a few nice cars sitting there for sale for the car buying public, or see more of these undesirable things? So Bunny is the owner of this business, and we would just ask for your help in finding some kind of solution to work out that we could stay there and keep people employed in the city of Destin. And we think the people in this town deserve more of an option, either buying a high-end luxury car or buying a high-end Jeep. That's only two choices they got.
I would like to address City Council and Mr. Mayor and let you know why I am the president and the owner of this company. In June of 2012, Stan was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. So I took over the business at that point to help him, and he could not, and this is not anyway a sympathy, but just to let you know where I stand in this and what my role I play, and to help him as far as selling cars and conducting the business. And he came up with the car buying service. And that he's done very well at, and especially with friends of ours, friends through the church. Tonight, a lot of them wanted to even be here and tell y'all the wonderful service that they have gotten through us, not being able to have to cross the bridge, go to Fort Walton. And this is what we don't understand. We just want to have our business. We are not a Sandy Sansing. We are not a big car dealership. We don't have dancing clowns, banners, signs, neon signs. At the most, we have had 8 or 10 cars. Yes, that has drawn traffic to his business. And I can take 20 steps outside our door and I'm in the county. I can take another 10 steps, I'm back in the city. So to me, I think that there needs to be a new voice in this and some type of action that where we can conduct our business. And that's all we are asking of y'all. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hall. And City Council, any questions of the Halls? Okay, see none. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. You can leave it on if you'd like. Okay, anyone else like to speak for or against this ordinance? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to City Council for discussion, direction, motion. First up, Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have somewhere a map that could show all the different commercial general areas that would be affected and need to be switched?
Yes, there's should be a zoning map attached to the agenda item, the last page of the agenda item.
Oh, it came up.
Page 30 and 58.
It's all the areas in red.
Great, thank you. Take a look at
There's also a table on attachment A that summarizes where car dealerships are allowed as either as a permitted use or as a conditional use in the city.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ramswell, were you still on a question? Or, oh, no, okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, next up, Mr. Foreman.
Thank you, Mayor. There's something illogical about this, and I have to agree that from what was described as other uses in this area, that this particular one is an exception. And I just, I've read through your material on this, and I can see some conflicts in there on trying to make some sense out of it. You've got a Porsche dealership. You've got another dealership over there at the present time, and it seems like the exclusion of this particular type of dealership. Now, internet dealership is different. I know that I've used Craigslist to go in and to purchase a car on Airport Road. And it worked out very well. So I guess my question is, if we take no action on this, some action needs to be taken at some point. Bring it back to us and to try to sort this out, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Is it true that we would allow a repair shop with multiple broke down cars to sit out there by the road, but you can't sell new vehicles there? That's the way that's reading.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, that auto maintenance and repair is in fact allowed in commercial general.
What are the chances changing this particular piece of property and not changing everything?
The issue is that auto dealerships can become quite expansive in scope and can proliferate, and anytime you've been in any city
where you have a district where auto dealerships are allowed, you end up with a number of unsightly uses associated with auto dealerships, especially with used cars. And also you end up with expansive uses that, have very large lots that use up a lot of territory to conduct those dealerships. This is the first time that I've heard of a suggestion that this somehow be limited to a smaller site instead of allowing a large-scale auto dealership, maybe allow a dealership of a certain scale that's smaller. That was the first time I've heard that. But I can tell you that with as limited a geographic area that the city has, I think the feeling on behalf of staff, on the part of staff, is that we're attempting, to the extent that we possibly can, to reserve the commercial general land that's available and remaining for such uses. I know that despite the fact that there's a lot of uses allowed, there's a lot of diversity, we would rather see things like restaurants and better quality retail and stuff like that, rather than auto dealerships that may proliferate and may take up a lot of that geographic area. So that's the thinking of staff in coming into this. But it is true that it is what the speaker said with regard to the allowable uses is precisely correct. Yes, sir.
Just seems, I would much rather see a car dealership out there with used cars or new cars, whatever, than seeing a massive tattoo shop out there or a bunch of cars, up on blocks getting repaired. That just sounds ridiculous to me that we would allow something like that, but wouldn't allow a car dealership. It sounds like 6 of one, half a dozen other to me. That's my opinion on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Dixon?
Yeah, I don't want us to turn into a used car city where we got used car dealerships popping up all over the places that I see here in red that are possible if we did change it to allow it in that specific zoning. I'm not against trying to see if we can do something to work with this gentleman and try to assist them in whatever way we can, but to just open it up to the whole thing. And then I don't know, if you getting into what you consider to be spot zoning, if we were to go in and just change one particular location and not allow that change throughout the total zoning area. So I would hope that maybe we could get these people to maybe come to us with some sort of a business plan and tell us how many cars would be the maximum, and maybe come talk to us about a way that we could do it without actually changing this ordinance. So, I think they've been operating over there right now, and
yeah, let me clarify that. The original approach, getting into the issues of the code issues, is that we tried to craft a settlement, a resolution of this that would allow them to be, and this is my word, more of a boutique car broker than car dealership. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is that model doesn't necessarily work for them. They need to be able to display cars as a more traditional car dealership, which then becomes a car dealer. So that's the struggle that we're having with it. The original business license that we gave them was more of a boutique car broker, matching up buyers and sellers and working that way without the display of vehicles and so forth. And I think they're struggling with that from an economic, so we've attempted to do that. But I think they need to be able to display the cars to let their potential customers know that they're basically, for lack of a better word, dealership.
And to follow up on that, just to say there's a lot of red areas here. I really would hate to see us get into a situation where we've got used car dealerships everywhere. I look like an area off of Beale Street or something. So I hope or wish we could do something to assist them, and I do understand their plight, but to change it to where all these areas are allowable to use in used car dealerships, I just can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you, Mayor. So in looking at this map, obviously the areas that are the yellow and black, if I'm reading this correctly, are county. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's areas north of 98 that's
Yes,
in the
there's a-
unincorporated area.
There's a black and yellow dashed line that you're referring to, I think.
Correct.
And everything that's north and east of that, that is gray or gray, light blue colored, very light blue colored, that is unincorporated county. And those areas kind of sinuously extend to some zones that are really kind of enclaves within the city limits in a few spots.
So their location, the potential location of this, or actually I guess they exist already, which area is that? Is that the square that is perfectly between two county properties?
Basically, it's right on Airport Road there.
And does the county allow automobile dealerships? And if they had perhaps said, let's say if they had bought the lot next to them, would an automobile dealership have been an allowable use?
I can't answer.
I don't know the answer to that question, whether or not car dealerships are allowed. And that's one of the things that we did suggest to Mr. Hall when he relocated his business was there any areas in the county that he could locate to? And I
Sure,
guess he
'cause
was unsuccessful.
What I'm getting at is if it's an allowable use on either side of them, then I have a problem with that, because here they are sandwiched through no fault of their own,
Yeah.
surrounded by areas where it would be likely unallowable.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the question.
Can he?
I'm sorry? Yes, please, come, that's fine. Sorry, my computer crashed. Is yours still? What was that all about? Web?
It completely shut down.
Mr. Rogers, just one second. Mr. Warren, you know, all of our computers just crashed a second ago.
I'm an electrical contractor if you need some help.
You know, yours fine? Okay.
You might have to take up all
Maybe
my-
it's just this half
Can you
the
do
room.
the AC?
Also, the color is not coming in like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine-
that's
mine
why I
didn't
was
either.
asking.
I did that, and that's what shut it down.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, that's all right. Mr. Rogers, please answer the question.
We've done the research and answered the question, yes, the county would allow that use in this district on both sides. Those two sides are Mr. Clary's properties. They're not annexed into the city, but are part of Oklahoma County. I think a good point Ms. Ranswell was going toward, if you look at the areas in red, which are CG, but if you would have the staff point out to you, if you look at the purple-gray stripes that where the dealerships already exist down Main Street, the 98 Palms Boulevard area, you'll see a gray and pink stripe over white. And if you look at the other zoning districts that do allow car dealerships, which beyond which is the village mixed-use areas, they far outweigh the areas in red. Especially that area in the gray and pink stripe is surrounded by red, up and down Highway 98, between Main Street, going down Main Street, and then you have the green purple dots all down Highway 98, and other mixed-use pieces. If you add them all together, they far outweigh what's in red. And I'll point out, and I asked staff last time before them to point out to me, I said, how many applications have been made for car dealerships in the city of Destin in the last 10 years? They didn't know. There's been 3. So what we're asking for is not for the Sandy Samsung, and I don't believe any car dealership, I build car dealerships as part of my business. There's no car dealership going to pay the property price of Destin in any of the red areas, or probably any of the other areas allowed in this city of Destin. They're not going to pay the land price to come in and take up acres and acres for an Acura dealership or any other type of dealership. It's just not probable, and I'm not a foreseer of the future. I can't say that that would be possible, but I did want to point out that the areas that continue to allow this car dealerships far outweigh what's in red, even on Highway 98. And if you did take what's in red, that you could put a maintenance shop, a repair shop, any type of tattoo parlor, again, those areas in red are already well-seasoned businesses that are part of the city of Destin and that planning. So we're not really trying to, again, change the city of Destin, but I think the arguments begin to wane when you look at the areas that you already do allow them versus what's in red where you don't allow them, but you allow maintenance repair shops.
So, sir, looking at this map, Is the small red square in the middle of all that, is that your property?
That's my property, where the arrow is, correct. In between Mr. Clary's properties that are in this, and then and it backs up to the park.
Okay.
Right, the old Destin log building, correct. I bought that building.
Thank you very much. Well, with this information, I think, if we could verify somehow that that is an allowable use for the county and those adjacent properties, I'd be willing, as Councilman Dixon suggested, to look at perhaps the spot zoning of that particular property.
I hereby prohibit you from using that terminology in this room, if you don't mind.
Is there a different term that is perhaps more palatable?
We might use the term site-specific, but we're not going to use the
Site-specific,
term
okay.
spot.
Actually, Mr. Masoff, y'all can go ahead and sit down. Thank you, sorry, I didn't want y'all to stand up. Oh, okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, Ms. Ramswell, do you want to continue on?
That's pretty much all I
Okay.
had to say.
Okay, good. All right, next up, Mr. Dixon.
Yes, and just looking at the red, and by the way, my map is messing up with me, I do see that, but looking at the red, we've got a lot of areas on Highway 98 and, that are, looks like they would be, eligible for this, and I do worry about whether or not we got car dealerships as soon as you pull into Destin on 98, and yes, they could be, successful, and they could be a lot of them, so, just to bear that in mind. Another thing too, is that, we find a lot of times where people are going into certain areas and want to open and develop certain businesses, and I applaud them for that, but if we change the zoning on pretty much everybody that would like something different in the zoning district that they're in, I think we would be doing this every meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Trammell?
I agree with what Mr. Dixon just said, but I was going to ask Scott and Mr. Casella here. I know there was a memo of understanding that was going around among all the cities with the county that essentially, if they had property that was abutting any of our properties, they would adhere to our guidelines as a city and not necessarily allow something that would be a hindrance to whatever our particular areas are. That's one. And the second thing is, what other categories can you put this business in?
Let me answer the latter portion. Automobile dealerships are allowed in the industrial area as a permitted use, and a conditional use in the town center mixed use as well as the North Harbor mixed use. And that's how the Porsche dealership and the Elite Jeep is located. They're a conditional use in those areas, but they're a permitted use in the industrial area.
So we have several other categories that they could fit in. And we have vacancies in those categories.
And that's correct.
So essentially, we're, I don't know, I can't support this based on the fact that there are other areas in our city that would allow such a thing. So I'm going to make a motion that we not, I guess, take action on this proposal.
There is no requirement for a motion if there's going to be no affirmative action by the council.
Okay, so.
The recommendation of the staff is no action. So if you intend no action, that's the result. There's just
all right, well,
no
I
motion.
will adhere to no action then. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Casella, I had one quick question. If they, you mentioned that they opened as a boutique type thing and not intended to be cars on the lot type, whatever. If they fulfill that, I mean, is there like can they stay longer? Do they have to leave? What's the tenure? What?
As long as they're adhering to the restrictions in the authorization we give them, they can operate there permanently. What they cannot do is display cars and be basically a car dealership. They can be a boutique broker at that location.
I mean, is there obviously we can't police it every day for obvious reasons, but is there like, I don't understand that world enough, but if they sell a car, is there like a 2 or 3 day grace period to make the exchange, or is it, what's the?
Mostly, and Ken can answer, mostly it's the question where they can't display the cars.
For sale, right.
For
But they
sale.
could
Can
have
put them
one on the
behind
lot.
the fence and that kind of thing, and be the broker boutique, they can do that. That's a use that is allowable.
Okay. Otherwise, they would have to, honestly, you're like Mr. Marler, otherwise they'd have to find a spot within, okay. Mr. Marler?
I'm gonna take a wild stab at this. How did that piece of property end up in the city and the rest of it around it not? I mean, the only way I can figure this out is the same thing that happened with the Chamber of Commerce. They annexed into the city, but I guess when the Destin Log purchased the property, it's the only thing I can figure out. But I mean, maybe somebody can answer that question. I'm just curious.
I think I'm the only one in the building that might know that historical
Okay, I'll go.
information. That was a parcel that was voluntarily annexed by the property owner at that time, and it occurred very early in the history of the city. I'm going to guess 86 or 7 somewhere, maybe even 85. But the property owner had a strong motive to annex.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Marler. Next up, Mr. Foreman.
Okay. Sorting this out in my own mind here, we're talking about a boutique auto dealership, and the other words I heard in there that it's primarily shopped by internet or other means like that, electronic means and all like that. So as long as it's within those parameters, it's good. I mean, there's no problem with its operation or its business in there. And having dealt with that recently, it works. So I think we need to just continue to do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I appreciate it. We can't keep going back and forth. I'm sorry. All right, City Council, obviously you heard what staff said y'all can do there on the parcel to continue on the way y'all originated, and so there's no issue on that. City Council, no other discussion, direction, motion? Okay, seeing none? All right, thank y'all for coming out. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, item number 3, second reading of ordinance 15-16-CN, proposed lease of 908 Airport Road. Mr. Miller, please read by title.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 15-16-CN by title is an ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, relating to the lease of certain real property owned by the city, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for City Council approval of a contract for lease of the property to the Food for Thought Outreach located at 908 Airport Road, Destin, Florida, and providing for an effective date. The ordinance is before you for consideration on second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Casella, anything to add to that?
No, it's, again, identical to the item that you considered on first reading. My understanding last week, the Rotary Club and Food for Thought visited the site. They have a game plan as it relates to the renovations and the targeted date for them opening on March 1st. And so it looks like if this is approved, they're ready to go. So, and then we have a representative from the Rotary Club here today if you have any answers for her.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casella. This is a public hearing, so if any member of the public wishes to speak for or against ordinance 15-16-CN, would you please come forward and state your name for the record? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion, turn it over to City Council for discussion, direction, motion. First up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a recommended motion. I move that the City Council approve ordinance 15-16-CN on second reading, accepting the proposed lease of 908 Airport Road to the Food for Thought Outreach, Inc., and direct the city manager to sign the lease and coordinate the volunteer improvements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Next up.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Ramsley, the second. That's fine. Okay, discussion, Mr. Dixon? No? Okay. Ms. Trammell?
I was just going to second the motion.
Okay. We have a first by Mr. Wood, a second by Ms. Ramswell. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Ms. Daly, thank you again. And we also please pass it to Ms. Tiffany. She's about to give a baby. So we hope all goes well for her new addition to the family. And thanks again for Rotary being a big part of that. Appreciate it. All right. This now is a chance for the public to have an opportunity to speak on items 4 through 17. So if any member wants to speak, this is a 3-minute section of time if you want to speak specifically to items 4 through 17. If not, any member of the public will have a chance to speak at the conclusion of this evening's meeting. Okay, seeing none, we'll move right along. Item number 4, Resolution 15-14, year-end budget amendment. Mr. Miller?
Resolution 15-14 by title is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Destin, amending the fiscal year 2015 budget and making certain amendments to the designated appropriations of funds of the city, increasing the general fund budget by $121,216, the CIP, R&R, and debt service funds by $344,038, the impact fee fund by $52,985, the 2009 Harbor CRA debt service fund by $44,505, the Town Center CRA operating fund by $178, the Harbor CRA CIP projects fund by $378, the Harbor CRA interfund transfer by $42,504, the facility maintenance multi-year R&R account by $1,747, the multi-year fund by $13,543, the elimination of specific appropriations of the multi-year fund budget by $31,463, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Casella, anything to add to that?
No, this is basically, we are required by state statute by the end of November to make these basically adjustments to the previous year's operating and capital budget. So we'd ask for your consideration of this item. Most of this, or the bulk of it, is we refinanced to 2005. We had prepay some expenses, principal and interest, so that inflated, but that would have been payments that we would have made in the fiscal year 16. So we'd ask for your consideration of this item.
All right, thank you, Mr. Casella. City Council, motion, discussion, direction. First up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 47, the dog park increase of $13,543. Was that not for the lights? Were we matched?
That is correct. What happened is when y'all allocated the funds from for the matching contribution, a budget amendment was not made, was not motioned and passed by the council, so that's all we're doing here is just passing that motion. This doesn't involve spending any money. We're just matching our budget to what we spent the previous year.
Right. I was just curious of why it says it was matching contributions for the changes of the dog park and not for lights at the dog park.
It is the lights, I believe.
That was my question there. Why does it say for matching contributions for the lights at the dog park? It says matching contributions for changes at the dog park. I was just curious why it doesn't say it was for the lights.
Does it matter if we change the lights? I mean,
no, it doesn't.
Okay. Would you like that? It's up to you. I mean,
no,
you can include that if you'd like.
I would like it if that's what it was for. I'd like it to say that it was for the lights, not just for changes.
We can include that in the motion if you'd like, or whoever makes the motion can include that if they'd like.
Not actually part of the motion.
Okay.
I mean,
That'd be
it's just
inclusion.
It's just a description.
Okay, does everybody give us that, council?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's good then. All right, thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Mr. Braden. Next up, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that Resolution 15-14 be approved with the changes to lights on the dog park.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Okay, we have first by Mr. Wood, a second by Mr. Trammell. Mr. Trammell, do you have any other discussion, or do you just want the second?
No, I was just going to make the motion.
Okay, good. Okay, what's that? Any other discussion? Okay, we have first by Mr. Wood, a second by Mr. Trammell. Let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, scheduled presentation from the public. We have the honor of Mr. Nathan Sparks with us this evening from the Economic Development Council, giving us a quarterly update. So, Mr. Sparks, we're honored you're here. Thanks for all you're doing. You've got the floor.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, Nathan Sparks with the Economic Development Council of Okaloosa County. Always a pleasure to come before you. It's been, once again, a very busy quarter for the EDC. I know it has for the city as well. Tonight, I'd like to just highlight some of the items that are included in your memorandum that went to Mr. Casella. As is customary for us this time of year, we're at the start of our new fiscal year, just as you all are. We welcomed a new officer slate at our installation event on October 8th. Some of you were present. We certainly appreciate that. It's always good to have a good show of support from our community, but certainly these folks are volunteers and they deserve to have their name read. Our new chairman is Greg Britton from Fort Walton Machining. Our new vice chair is Kelly Murphy-Red with Ruckle Properties. Our new treasurer is Kim Whitner with Alliance Management. By the way, his business is in the city of Destin. Our new secretary, Linda Sumblin, with Career Source Okaloosa Walton. And our new member at large is Glenn Scharf, Salt Marsh, Cleveland and Gunn, who is a resident of the city of Destin. So we're very pleased. Those ladies and gentlemen are already off and running and doing a great job. You all know that we're a small staff and we rely heavily on the expertise of our volunteers and volunteer leaders to help guide and shape our efforts. I'd like to talk a bit about marketing. You know, we've talked about marketing a fair amount over the past couple of years, and we're really now at a point where we're beginning to work hard to realize the fruits of that effort. Over the past quarter, we've had the opportunity to participate in some strategic marketing initiatives that prior to our successful campaign we would have not been able to do. So first and foremost, we undertook a mission with Enterprise Florida and the Team Florida Marketing Partnership to New York back in August. We spent 2 days on the ground. In total, our team of 20 from around the state of Florida called on more than 40 site selection consultants. And you all know that these men and women who are site consultants touch many, many different companies who are considering new areas. So it's very important that those individuals know of the advantages that we offer. And so we spent a good bit of our time educating them on Florida, and for me personally, Okaloosa County in particular. We were very pleased to see that many of them had knowledge of our region of the state. Many of them indicated a growing prospect pipeline for Florida in general. They indicated that the reforms that have been made at the state level in terms of lessening regulatory burdens and the like have been noted, and that many companies are now asking for Florida to be included in the mix. We certainly took the opportunity to talk about our opportunity with Triumph. You all know that the Triumph opportunity is tremendous and frankly stands to be a game changer for our area. Obviously our county is one of the 8 counties that stands to benefit from that. And we're, like you all are, very anxious to see how the Triumph Board determines how best to utilize that $1.5 billion worth of funding. But we know, without a doubt, that those funds will be used for economic development in the 8 disproportionately affected counties. So it was great to have the opportunity to interface with site consultants and to tell them about Triumph and to tell them that it's a new day in Florida and a new day in Northwest Florida in particular, that we have resources to compete with anyone. So we also continued that theme as we traveled to Dallas. And Dallas is another market where these site consultant professionals tend to be clustered. So late September, we found ourselves in Dallas with some counterparts from around our region. Over the course of our 3 days there, we met with 8 different firms and had very in-depth discussions with some firms who really specialize in headquarters projects. And you all know that we have an abundance of office space in the city. And so this was of particular interest to me to interface with a group that we don't often have the opportunity to interface with, to talk to them about the opportunity to bring regional headquarters and larger headquarters facilities to our area of the state. Our message, by the way, was very well received. In fact, since that trip in late September, early October, we've gotten 2 projects from those consultants that we met with during our time in Dallas. So that just goes to show that these efforts pay off. You know, relationships matter, as you all know, and certainly this is an opportunity that we'll do more of. We also wanted to say thank you tonight because we certainly enjoyed being a part of your City of Destin open house. While I was out traveling, Kay Rasmussen, our Associate Director, was very pleased with her experience at the City of Destin open house and came away with glowing reviews. She said that she had the opportunity to meet many of your citizens who in some cases were very familiar with what we do, which was very encouraging, but also in other cases were less familiar. So it was an opportunity for us to educate some folks on our partnership with you all and how important it is. It was an opportunity for us to talk about the importance of economic diversification and to get some feedback, most importantly, from citizens who in many cases have done some very significant things and had some thoughts about how we can better improve what we do in terms of promoting our area for economic development. So again, thank you for that opportunity. It's certainly something that if you continue to do it, we'll be glad to continue to do it with you. As far as strategic initiatives go, as you note in the memo, there are a couple of things that are specific to Destin that I wanted to bring to the floor this evening. One of those is the fact that, again, we recognize that there is an abundance of vacant office space, available office space in the city. We think that's an opportunity. The fact that you all have product is certainly an opportunity. In fact, I can share with you that on our Okaloosa Sites website, of the 400 plus listings, 86 of those listings are City of Destin listings. So in thinking about how we best build a strategy to try and leverage that product opportunity that we have in the city, you know, it occurs to us that we may have a ready-made platform in our much beloved reputation as the world's luckiest fishing village. And specifically what I'm getting at is there are many businesses that are fishing equipment companies who have headquarters and satellite offices in states that are less than friendly to business, in places like California and in the Northeast and other places where you wouldn't think that fishing equipment companies would be located. So we've been doing some early stage research, looking at companies that fit that bill, that meet that profile, that are fishing equipment companies first and foremost, but that are also located in states that are high tax. So with that in mind, we've identified a target list of companies that we're beginning to refine. And as we go forward with that, you know, certainly welcome your thoughts as leaders of the city as to how we best message the Destin story. It's something that we know that you all will have some thoughts on. I know that we've got fishing equipment companies here already, and we've got obviously the opportunity to be a test bed for new equipment right down at the harbor. So we think that the R&D piece of it, in addition to the office opportunity that I've spoken to, is one that certainly will get plenty of attention. But as we go forward, certainly we'll need to build marketing material that really speaks to that message specifically, and that's something that we look forward to more conversation about. But know that this is something that's evolving, and again, we welcome your input. The other strategy that you may have noted in the memo is the idea that we're working on with, or the concept rather, that we're working on with the Destin Chamber and Turnberry Associates to begin the exploration of prospective uses for the Destin Commons parking deck tower. It's really a tremendous opportunity, Class A opportunity, about 86,000 square feet of space, multi-level space. We could accommodate a large corporate headquarters facility there or many different facilities. And so know that we're exploring some ideas that range from more corporate type environments to educational environments. And again, those are things that we're very interested in your input on as well. As far as projects go, though, I can tell you that we're experiencing a nice level of project activity and a pretty diverse level of project activity. At present, we have 20 active projects. 7 of those are expansions of existing Okaloosa County operations. So that's always good to see local businesses thinking about expanding, contemplating expanding. It's a good sign for all of us. But the 20 projects, as you can see in the graphs before you, really run the gamut from manufacturing projects. About 45% of our companies are manufacturing. That's actually down. You know, when I've been here in recent quarters, that number has been much higher. The reason that's down is we're seeing more diversification in our project pipeline at the moment. We're seeing more headquarters projects. 10%, in fact, of our current pipeline is headquarters related. Aerospace and defense continues to be a strong sector for us. We're still working a lot of activity. We've had some good wins that have been well publicized with aerospace projects, but we do have some that are continuing to talk with us. Moving into the number of jobs slide, which is the next slide, there you go. This one will give you a sense as to the number of jobs that are in play in Okaloosa County at present. And so specifically, you can see that this is where you really start to see those headquarters projects overtake the manufacturing projects in terms of the job numbers. You know, headquarters projects tend to have a lot of people at higher wages in a concentrated place. Manufacturing, in some cases, less concentration of people per se, but you can see here 1,399 job opportunities in our pipeline, almost 1,400 job opportunities. in the headquarters sector, and many of those are certainly good candidates for the office space that you all have in your community. In total, we have 4,100 jobs in play in our pipeline at present, and you all know that our business is a percentage business. The more opportunities we get up to the plate, the more projects that we get to consider Okaloosa County and our cities, the better the odds of success. So we're pleased to have 4,100 jobs in play, and we're very optimistic that many of them will go further in their negotiations and discussions with us and ultimately choose to locate in our great community. So beyond that, I always like to leave you with some information about specific traffic that we're seeing in terms of our Okaloosa Sites website. As a reminder, OkaloosASites.com is a great source of information about your city and all the municipalities of Okaloosa County as well as the county itself. We're finding that traffic to that website continues to grow. A lot of demographic information, a lot of sales data that's used by our existing businesses. They're all very complimentary of what we've done. You all have helped fund that, so thank you for that. I can tell you that right now the city of Destin residents are really spending most of their time on Okaloosa Sites visiting the consumer spending pages, looking at the various information available under that particular section where you can actually look and see what the average household spends on certain consumer goods and services. Certainly helpful, as I've discussed before, in building business plans. Wages, housing information, those things continue to be also viewed in great numbers by your residents. As far as specific properties go, again, you heard me mention that there are 414 listings on the website. 86 of those are in the city. The top 4 that are getting viewed from the city are 151 Regions Way, which is 4,800 square feet of office, 36468 Emerald Coast Parkway, which is part of a 5,000 square foot building. It's 1,000 square feet of office that's available within a broader office building. And then 985 Highway 98 East, 1,800 square feet of office. And then last but not least, 120 Benning, which is 1,200 square feet of office. So you're seeing, you know, up to 5,000 square feet of office among those 4. Certainly, that type of facility can accommodate a wide range of users, whether it's a sales need, whether it's a financial services need, whether it's a doctor's office. So it's no surprise, my point here is it's no surprise that some of our smaller, more flexible office environments are getting more interest. And then last but not least, I'll share with you that out of all the cities in Okaloosa County, the city of Destin continues to be the one that's getting the most looks. And in fact, you're getting more looks than Okaloosa County in terms of searches. So that's something that you know, speaks well of the traffic that the website's generating, speaks well of the interest in your city. And last but not least, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Sparks. Appreciate it so much. City Council, have any questions of Mr. Sparks?
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, I want to tell you, I don't see any, but on behalf of the city of Destin, we appreciate your partnership. Thank you for keeping us.
As do we.
Thank you for keeping us on the radar. And I also know you told me about looking at fishing manufacturing companies, and I love that you are marrying the heritage of our city with a complementary business that can graft in well to what we're doing, and it makes sense. And so to me, with looking at the bubble of your circle of targeted industries, obviously I don't see fishing manufacturing on that.
Right.
So you've gone out of the box. And so for our behalf, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so also am mindful that obviously the Turnberry project there is not in the city, but at the same time, I'm also mindful if something goes there, it's a win for the city. Because those people live in the city, shop in the city, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Very much so.
So I do appreciate on behalf of the city looking out for our best interest. And I thought Kay did a great job at the open house. I saw her taking questions, so tell her we appreciate her presence
I'll
as well.
sure do that.
And
Thank
give
you
our
for
best to
saying that.
Caroline too, absolutely.
Thank you.
Actually, Mrs. Ramswell does have Mrs. Ramswell?
I just wanted to ask your opinion. I've heard a lot of speculation and talk about really extending the rail out this way. Have you heard anything about that? It would obviously be a tremendous economic boon.
You know, I haven't heard about that, so it's interesting. That's intriguing. So extending the rail lines?
Starting it. I guess they stopped it back after a hurricane and some damage, and obviously ridership decreased. But I know around League of Cities, some of the talk has been about trying to get it going again.
Okay, that's very intriguing. Well, I'll tell you, transportation, as Councilman Wood knows, transportation of any form is the backbone of successful economic development. So I think that that would certainly be an advantage and certainly worth exploring.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Ms. Trammell?
I just want to follow up on Ms. Ramswell's comment. We're talking about looking at Amtrak going from Jacksonville to California again, and we're the missing piece. You know, after New Orleans, it goes, but so there is community travel that way.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I don't know that it's gotten any farther regionally because basically it's Amtrak. You know, I mean, it's up to them whether they want to develop it or not. And, but we're certainly supporting whatever they decide to do.
Well, it's very intriguing, and I'm certainly going to look into it because if there's any information that we can help provide in their decision, we're certainly willing to do that.
Well, Mr. Wood would be the one to talk to then.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Mr. Wood?
As you say, we've on the Oklahoma Walton TPO, we've supported this for the last 5 years, reestablishing the rail link, whether it's Amtrak or something else, doesn't matter as long as we reestablish the link. So we did, the last resolution was this year, so it's been going on for a while now. So unfortunately, it's not getting much traction. So.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Anyone else? Okay, no problem. Mr. Sparks, thank you again. Appreciate it very much. I think it was a phone. Next up, project reports and comments from Mayor and Council. First up, Ms. Trammell.
I have nothing tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Mr. Wood?
Thank you for just two quick things. First, I'd like to thank the Mattie Kelly Arts Festival. I ran their parking for their festival, I guess, a week ago on the weekends. A lot of fun out there, met a lot of folks. And on the 12th and 13th of November, I will be chairing the 3rd Annual Emerald Coast Transportation Symposium at Destin. So we got about 200 folks coming to that. So if you're interested and want to go on the West Florida Regional Planning Council website, you can register and come do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Thanks for leading that up. Appreciate that. Next up, Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a little thing to do here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Honorable Mayor and Councilors, citizens of Destin, over the past few months, we have been in very trying times for our city. Decisions have been made by the council that will hopefully take our city through the next 5 to 10 years. We as a council have tried to set forth a standard that is fair and just for our entire city, and have, in my opinion, leveled the field for a fair and positive way for us to monitor our growth and resources for the years ahead. Now, with that being said, I wish to make a few comments on some things that have been bothering, worried, or upset me in the last few years. I promise to keep this as brief as possible and to stick to the guidelines of our meeting standards. First off, when I was first elected to this council in 2000, a wise city attorney said to me, "Watch what I say and do and how I say and do, because I am no longer just Kyron Marler. I am now and shall evermore be Councilor Kyron Marler, which means I am one of 7 who the citizens have elected to do what is right and just for all of Destin. If you listen to my invocations at the beginning of our meetings, you will always hear me speak the words, 'Let the decisions of this council be fair and just for all parties.' To me, that means the city and its citizens as a whole, not as one group over another, or one property owner or developer over another. In other words, for all of Destin." Sorry, my papers are stuck. In my first 2 terms on this council and in this current term, I've always followed those words, and I've often used a quote from a movie that I truly believe is how an elected official should do his or her duty. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. Well, the needs of the many, to me, this means the city as a whole and what is right and fair and just for all of Destin. The needs of the few, to me, this means a group of citizens such as an HOA, developers, or NIMBYs who try to sway council as a whole, or individual members to see things their way without looking at the big picture for the entire city. And that's not to say that they do not have valid points, but they should be weighed in against the overall picture. This can cause problems for not only the few, but for the members of council as well. Lines in the sand will be drawn, friendships can be broken, elected officials could be accused of selling their vote, which would cause bigger problems that I will not get into, but you get the picture. The needs of the one. Each individual elected official is entitled to his or her opinion on whatever subject may come before us. But sometimes they must look beyond what they think and look at the greater good of the people as a whole. And this could be a yes or no vote, depending on the subject matter. And that is when you must decide what you as John or Jane citizen would want. I have just 2 small more matters to which I will address, and then I will get off my soapbox. We all make mistakes. Not one of us is perfect. The only perfect person died for us many years ago, and that person, according to the written word, was quoted as saying, "He who without sin cast the first stone." Very simply put, pointing fingers does not make your wrong into a right or disappear. It's still there and will not go away until you own up to it and not allow the whispers in your ears to tell you otherwise. And finally, this elected official has to make a living and provide for his family. Who I am employed by has nothing to do with my position on this council. I have been and always will be an honest, fair, and just for all the citizens of Destin. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marler. Next up, Mr. Foreman.
Mayor, I would like to say that this Halloween passed rather peacefully as far as I can determine. But what was most particularly interesting to me was the Halloween parade that was held down at the library. These are all young kids and mothers and fathers were there. A few grandfathers were there, and all. And they had a parade that went through the stacks and came back around, and then they all gave them little baskets to take with them, and they had a ball. But that was probably the best little operation we've conducted in a long time in this city, because it did something for the little kids.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Dixon?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff for the open house that was held last week. I had a great time. The staff did an outstanding job. I'd also like to thank Mr. Jim Shira for the cooking the fish, and he did a great job as always, and just want to thank the staff again for everything that they did with that. I do want to bring up one issue tonight that I have brought up before, and I don't see much traction on, and I'd like to see some action with. And that is, I judged at the fishing rodeo on Saturday, and I noticed how many derelict boats we have that are in the harbor. And I live near Joe's Bow. I don't live on Joe's Bow. I live near Joe's Bow, and I ride by there every now and then. And I see the junk basically still accumulating in Joe's Bow. I want something to be done with these boats. I don't care if we have to approach our legislative delegation to try to get assistance with it, but we have sailboats in the harbor that are never going to sail again, can never sail again. Some of them don't have the mass on them. They're sitting sideways on our property, and I just think it's incredibly ridiculous to have those boats there for that long of a period of time. We have got to do something with this. We're going to turn our bows and our harbors into an absolute junkyard. People are buying these boats for $500 with the idea that they're going to try to fix them up. They see the task and they never get it done because it's too much money or it's too much trouble. They end up using these boats as a party boat. When they pull up on their regular boat, they get off and they party on the sailboats that they have basically anchored or docked over there. The lines are stretched across where people can't walk along the shoreline, and I just think it's high time we do something about this. I don't care what we need to do, but if we need to involve the state, and I know how hard it is trying to deal with the state to get rid of boats that are basically abandoned, but we have got to do something about this. Our areas, our water areas are turning into boat graveyards, and we're going to be left holding the bill with this. And if we don't get in contact with some of these people, I've seen the same pontoon boat sit out at Joe's Bayou now for probably 3 years, and it's coming apart every day. It looks a little worse, a little worse. Pontoon boats probably will never sink. We've got one that's sunk out there that they have lifted up, thank goodness, but we've got to take action on this. And if we don't take action on this soon, we're going to be overloaded with it, and we can't do anything then. So I'm begging you, I'm begging the council to please continue to keep the pressure on staff to make sure that we get this done. I am just so tired of it. It is so embarrassing, and we deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Cassell, y'all got that? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Dixon. Next up, Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I also attended the open house, and I couldn't believe how many folks were there and how it's changed over the years. And it really was fantastic to see so many folks come out. I had people coming up to me that were just visitors in town, and they wanted to come and take part in it. So I thought that was fantastic. It was a great job for staff getting the word out, and it was just a fantastic event. I wanted to actually ask if the mayor would indulge and actually ask our city attorney a question for me. As probably almost everyone in this room is aware of, I received a letter after our special council meeting on the 21st. According to this letter, irregularities that the city manager found in my city credit card, he felt the need to forward it to the state attorney. Now, this letter also stated that under the advice of counsel, I was not able to speak with our city attorney. So my question that I'd like for you to ask the city attorney is, with the change in circumstances, is the city attorney now unavailable to everyone in the city in this regard?
Let me make sure I get, so you, Mr. Miller,
Mayor, I cannot comment on the criminal investigation that's in the jurisdiction of the state attorney. I'm available to all of you regarding general business of the city, as I've always been. I'm only accessible 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
so,
But I'm not sure that's actually answering my question.
so the question is, you're not,
Since now anyone with the city that has a credit card is now under investigation, does that mean he's unavailable to everyone in the city with a credit card, or is it still confined to just me?
so with the questions, basically, since the state attorney is looking at all the city credit card use of the whole city, are you unaccessible to anyone that has use of the city?
There's been no change in regard to the issue. I'm under the instruction of the state attorney to make no comment relating to this credit card issue.
Okay.
And so
So
for
outside
that
of
issue,
outside of that issue,
for that issue, I'm not available to
okay, but
anyone,
you are
I guess
available.
it'd be fair to say.
Outside of that issue, though, you're available to everyone.
Fully accessible.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. The other thing I'd like to ask is if the city attorney could please explain and define the concept of polling.
Okay. Mr. Miller, the term polling, can you define in your, I guess, what you, how you define
I'll be
polling?
glad to consult with you privately relating to that so that you can give me the alleged facts that raise the issue.
Oh, there are no facts. I just wanted an open forum for a definition and an explanation so everybody could be on the same page as to what it is.
I'll defer to have each person who might be an alleged poller to consult with their own counsel.
Okay, again, that's not really answering my question, but I'll let it go. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Ramshaw. Thank you. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. My question for staff is, the list of sidewalk repairs that was sent out, can I get a copy of those, please? Yeah. Thank you. And Red and Brunson Street, can we get an update on that?
Mr. Campbell?
Right now, the Destin Water Users contractor's out on Red and Brunson, and, installing the water line and the sewer line. Once their portion of the project is complete, then paving will occur. Now, I don't have the timeline on that, but I could get that for you.
I was just curious. I went down it a couple times this past week and looked like all the sewer lines and everything was in. I was just curious when they might. I just figured it may have been because all the rain we've been having, they're waiting on it, but I was just trying to get an update on it and see when it might be completed or.
The rains definitely has slowed things up, but I'll certainly give you a projected schedule from here on out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, you done?
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
No, please, do you have more, Mr. Braden? Do you have more? Mr. Braden, do you have more? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Yeah, one other thing along the whole lines of the credit card issue deal. I'm getting, everywhere I go, no matter where it is, I get asked, can I use your credit card? And as humiliating as it is enough to even be a part of this whole deal, I do not have one, nor will I ever have a credit card for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. I'd like an update on the Red and Brunson, if you don't mind including me in that, just because there's some neighbors in there that were hurt by the floods. I know they'd want to be an update on that too.
Certainly, Mayor.
So, Mr. Wood, do you need to head out?
Yes, sir. As I told you, I've got to pick up my wife tonight, so I'm going to take off, and thank you.
No, no, obviously, for the record, Mr. Wood had to leave to go pick up his family from the airport. Good. All right, thank you. And Mr. Dixon, just, there you go, he's coming back. So he's coming back. That's all right. Yeah, we're good. I just had real quick, again, open house was fantastic. Thank you, city staff, for doing that. It's always a joy to be part of that. Food was outstanding. Mr. Rayner did a great job putting it together, as always, and so it was awesome, just an honor to be part of it. And so, with that, that's it for my part. Next up, staff reports and recommendations. First up, Mr. Miller.
Mayor, I have no additional items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Next up, Mr. Shirley.
Nothing for me this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shirley. Next up, Mr. Casella, item number 16.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is an item basically to repair the air conditioning in this building. We got a quote from D&D, which is the city's air conditioning contractor. I think it's a little over $20,000.
That's correct.
And we'd ask for your consideration of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Casella. Ms. Trammell, first up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the purchase of a new HVAC system be approved in the amount not to exceed $20,682. Authorize the city manager to purchase the item as indicated on the attached proposal. Fund the purchase from the city's repair and replacement account and make appropriate budget amendments. And I do that all for Mr. Dixon.
Okay.
I'll second it before Mr. Dixon gets there.
Okay. Yeah, actually, Mr. Warren told me as half of this building is out of the AC, so this is definitely timely and needed. All right, so we have first by Ms. Trammell, second by Mr. Marler. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, now let's call the vote. It's about to get cold outside. Okay, motion passes 6-1. Okay, next up, item number 17, City Manager, Mr. Casella.
Yeah, just quickly, the comprehensive plan goes to the local planning agency, LPA, on Thursday evening. I think it's at 5:30 that meeting start. We are still working on the date to schedule assuming it works its way through the LPA on Thursday. Right now, we are tentatively looking at Thursday, December the 10th. So if y'all could look at your agendas, if your calendars, if that creates a problem for you, if you let me know, I'd appreciate it. So, but that's still tentative at this point. So we are looking at Thursday, December 10th. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Casella. Next up is comments from the audience, and I want to turn the meeting over if there's anyone like to speak for or against anything. Sure, 5-minute time limit. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, so you didn't want that? Okay, no. Yeah, it's not on. You're actually good, and so you probably know the. Okay, if you, it's already lit. But if you can state your name for the record, please.
My name is Deborah Thurman, and I was reading.
I'm sorry, Ms. Thurman.
Deborah Thurman. I've been reading a lot in the paper about the credit card issue, so I came here to see what really goes on at City Council. I would like to know who all has been issued city credit cards of the council, and
sure.
I would like to know the definition of polling, because I've read about the paper and I don't want to hire an attorney, so I would like is it Mitchell?
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Miller to explain what that is.
Mayor, same answer.
Okay, that's fine.
So we have to look it up ourselves.
Well, apparently. I've got one.
I don't.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's, I believe, staff. There's 29, 30 staff or whatever.
Okay.
And I will tell you, the state attorney is looking at everything we've got, which I think is great, including myself, and I think they need to. And then they'll make a determination, hopefully sometime in the next few months, any findings they have, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so that way everyone's on the same page.
Are you looking at creating a new policy in order to deal with that differently in the future?
We'll wait until see.
Mayor, I'd ask you, under the general instruction of the state attorney, that you not make responses to issues relating to the subject.
Because they're going to, they're going to respond back to us what they want us to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great question, though. Yep, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Okay, next. Mr.
Mayor?
Project?
Mayor,
Mr. Brady, yes.
Does that mean that Mr. Miller cannot give us any definitions on the sunshine law whatsoever?
No, I believe Mr. Miller, you can give us a definition on sunshine law, correct?
Certainly.
But not just
You would like for us to contact you separately about that?
Yes, I'd like to know what the alleged facts are so that I can apply that to the consideration
So what,
and apply the proper analysis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same answer, Mayor.
okay, that's fine. Mr. Turjack?
My name is Patty Turjack, and I just want to say, in following her on the credit card issue, that I just think that the whole thing is an embarrassment, the way that it's being handled by the media, the press, the city, everything, and I just feel bad for Destin that that's happening right now.
Thank you, Mr. Turjack, appreciate that. Next. Sir?
My name is David Schusler. I live at 100 Gulf Shore Drive here in Destin. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Mr. Dixon, the first thing that I ever did, moving to Destin in 2002, living next to Point 1 at that time, Noriega Point, was to say, wow, look at that crap on that boat. That was 2004. We're still having the same problem. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've always said that the Destin Harbor is one of the most unique places in the country. And what I would recommend is to possibly look at what Monroe County is doing, which is all of the Keys. They don't have that problem down there. They're doing something right. Contacting, looking at their laws and stuff like that, something that we could possibly adopt, because they do not have that problem at all. Boats like those that are like that, they're gone. I don't know how.
That's good.
They also don't have the problems with helicopters down there too, which is, we won't go any further. I do have a few questions that I think deserves answers to. When the first 2020 comp plan came before the council, it was developed in open workshops with very little or no advertising. And with the exception of a couple of citizens, was attended by mostly developers, their attorneys, all the city council members, and the planning staff. Now, fast forward to the caning meetings that cost the taxpayers of this city over $200,000. These meetings were heavily advertised. These meetings were heavily attended by the public, with some 400 citizens in attendance. Some developers were in attendance, but not to the degree observed in the previous workshops or meetings. However, there was one huge notable difference. Mr. Mayor, City Council, where were you during these meetings?
We were allowed to attend, weren't we? Yeah.
Okay. Who is the person that made the decision that you weren't allowed to attend?
Mr. Casella? We made that decision?
Okay, and that's public record.
Okay.
Mayor, who was we?
Okay.
'Cause I was not part of that. Who was we?
That was part of the workshop sessions we had when we requested that. Not you council members, council before you were elected. Because we were sitting in the meeting with the developer, and that's when we said we wanted to do something different. We wanted to go out, we wanted to have public meetings, at that point.
Your mics, yeah.
And we wanted to have public meetings at that point, and that's when it was directed. At that time, we had another city manager, so it took time to work through the
I
system.
understand. Did council members have any input in the decision not to attend the meetings?
Yeah, well, essentially we did, because at the session, it was determined that we didn't need to be there. We wanted the citizens to have their say without
Okay.
us there.
And thank you. Taxpayers on Holiday Isle are terribly disappointed that our voices were not heard by Canaan, city staff, or this council. We have spoke with property owners in other planning areas that have come to the same conclusion. They do not understand why the voices of the people were not heard. Could it be because of the developers and their threats of lawsuits against the city? As I understand it, Holiday Isle proper is 26 to 28% of this city's tax base. Somebody correct me if it's in the, see, 24, 26, or 28, 26% of the tax base for this city. Okay, just want to make that comment. We would like to see this comprehensive plan move forward. To that end, we intend to continue and work with the LPA and the council to reach a mutual and fair agreement on this proposed comprehensive plan. I respectfully ask you, Mayor and Council, to direct the city manager to direct his staff to keep this playing field level. If that is done, we the people pledge to assist in any way we can to see that the ordinance regarding this proposed plan becomes law. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question and your point. Mr. Casella, along those lines, as before, can you give them the confidence that this will be, from the LPA, even to this point, it's, so they have that?
Yeah, it's what the city council voted on at your last meeting is being presented, to the LPA on Thursday night. It's basically been developed in open session.
And then we got, of course, the LPA meeting coming this week.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Retha Shreve, 415 Gulf Shore Drive, Holiday Isle. First off, I want to say, I think for $6,500 a month, the definition of the polling under the Sunshine Law, I think could have been given to us so we understood it tonight, but my own personal opinion. Over the past 4 to 5 months, I've been attending the council meetings, mainly so I can learn about what's going on in the city that I love and to try to get involved as much as I can. I've been watching and listening, over time deciding for myself who I believe is truly listening to the citizens of Destin, who aren't listening, which council authorities seem to have an agenda of their own, and which ones seem to be working in the best interest of Destin as a whole. What I've seen, learned, and read about over the past couple of weeks is the most disturbing. A city council member has been bullied, intimidated with suggestions of which way they should vote on specific issues, and when this person still did not give in to the pressure, became a target of a smear campaign to try and ruin their name. The most concerning part of this scenario is this is one of the people that I know who truly listen to the citizens of Destin, cares about this city, where it's going, and from there tries to make the best decision possible for all involved. I respect this person and I respect what they stand for. What do we want for Destin? Do we want what is best for the majority or just a select few? Do we want a good old boy atmosphere of I'll scratch your back if you'll scratch mine? Or do we want people who have no problem standing up for what they believe in and vote the way their conscience tells them? From where I'm standing, I see a few that truly don't care about Destin as a whole and a few who do. Because of the obvious bullying, the outright intimidation tactics, and the smear campaign instigated by one particular person, I personally am coming before this council tonight to request the immediate termination of Greg Casella. His salary and benefits are paid for by the citizens of Destin, and I do not want my tax dollars paying someone who doesn't give a crap about what the people want.
Ma'am, watch, please. No
And does not stand for Destin or its citizens. I know with certainty that I'm not the only one that feels this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shreve. Next up. Yes, ma'am. Sir. How are you?
Some of you might know me. My name is Patty DeFrenza. I've lived here 15 years. Thank you all for doing your job, because nobody really wants to do it. I realize the city and fire district are separate entities, but in September of 2014, Destin Fire Chief Kevin Sasser recommended to the fire commissioners to reduce EMS response from automatic to limited protocol. This was approved by the fire commissioners. I felt this is a breach of their fiduciary responsibility to protect the lives of the citizens of Destin. You can replace any property with insurance, but you can't replace a life. Seconds count. When they're not toned out, somebody's laying there waiting, and it could be the last minutes of their life. I asked Destin City Council members to intervene and return automatic response for all EMS calls. There's no reason a person with an open fracture has to wait 20 minutes for the county EMS ambulance to get treatment when the Destin paramedics were literally blocks away. The county EMS ambulance was already transporting someone to Fort Walton, but we only had the county ambulance here, which I think Destin Fire should have an ambulance at each station, which can be received by FEMA grants, but that's another issue. I bought here 15 years ago with reading the Destin Fire mission statement saying advanced paramedic services 24/7, 365 days a year. I feel reducing EMS response is nothing short of bait and switch to the public and needs amending. We need your help. Destin City Council can address this issue as it is your responsibility to assure citizens and visitors immediate access to advanced life support paramedic services. Further, Crab Island is county jurisdiction out to 7 miles. We have Coast Guard and Sheriff's Department patrolling Crab Island, and I spoke with the Sheriff's Department. They are certified as first responders as part of their training curriculum. It is reckless to use Destin taxpayers' money to foot the $94,000 expected cost for Destin Fire to patrol Crab Island when the majority of Crab Island patrons are visitors. Thus, the cost to patrol Crab Island should be shouldered by Okaloosa TDC, not the Destin taxpayers. The fire chief and commissioner should not have begun services at Crab Island, and certainly not until Destin citizens receive full automatic response to all emergency medical calls promptly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. Okay, next up, Mr. Tadler. No. Sure. Yeah, sure.
Honorable Mayor, City Councilor, I'm Guy Tadlock. I live on Holiday Island. And I'm not going to talk about the comp plan tonight, so relax. Mr. Dixon, I would like to say I 100% agree with your comments about the junkyard that we got out in the harbor. It's the worst I've ever seen it, living here for 12, 13 years. The other thing is that the little wind, the little storm we had, it took about half those boats and they were floating wildly in the harbor, got against some other boats, and then they all ended up down in front of AJ's. So we need to do something. Honorable Mayor and Councilors, at the last meeting, the October the 20th meeting, there were some comments about partial B and C, which I want to talk about tonight, and also the spoil site easement that's on partial B and C. At the last meeting, it was incorrectly stated that the spoil site easement on partial B and C did not cover the entire area. That is not factual, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this tonight. If you'll take this sheet that I passed out, and I'm going to try to hold this up and talk at the same time. Basically, that dark area is partial B, and then the little light outline area around that is the spoil site that overlays that. And it basically overlays the whole thing. Now, I'm going to still try to speak into the mic here, but if you look at this larger drawing, in green you can see partial B, and then in the highlighted yellow, you can see that same line that was overlaid on this drawing that was done. This particular drawing Part of it was done in 1997, and part of it was done, the overlay was actually done in 2003. Now, one reason why I'm familiar with this is on Holiday Isle, as you well know, we've had several beach restorations going back to 2 small restorations where we took sand from Partial B and put it in front of Jetty East and in front of Destin Point. There were 2 of those, and then we had an emergency beach access that the citizens on the west end of Holiday Isle paid for, and then we had the big beach restoration. So in those projects that I was involved in, we had a lot of documentation on Partial B and C. Now, the other thing that you've got in your packet I'd like you to look at is this report right here, which is a title search that was done by the city, by Scott Shirley. And if you'll look through that, so surprisingly, there's like the middle page, there's 30 encumbrances on that partial, with number 20 being an easement to the United States, which that is registered in the Okaloosa Official Records Book 705, page 533. And again, if you overlay that document, it's going to overlay both Partial B and Partial C. Now, you ask, why is that important? The other page that is in your handout is this one right here. Now, this is actually a drawing from the Corps of Engineers. And if you look at it, it shows the stone jetty, or what we called the East Jetty. And then you'll see a sand dike. And that sand dike basically covers Partial B and C, which is what that easement that I'm illustrating right here, that sand dike basically goes from the stone jetty here all the way up through this area here to the northern property line of Partial B. That sand dike is very critical to the safety and the protection of East Pass. It's very critical to the safety and protection of those condominiums that are on Noriego Point. It's also very critical to East Pass and keeping East Pass navigable. So that spoil side easement is there. It's there for a purpose. And I think it's very important that the city realize what it's there for and the importance of that sand dike. Now, Hurricane Opal, when it came through in, let's see, when was Opal? 95, was within about 100 or 150 feet of breaching the beach that was between the stone jetty and that Partial B across there. And it breached, I guarantee you, we would have had lots of problems with East Pass with it filling in and with the vessels getting out, being able to get out. Also, I'd like for you to recall that Noriego Point at that time was breached. It took about 6 to 9 months to get that back together. If the sand dike ever breaches, I think it'll take much longer than that, and whether or not the vessels can get out of Destin Harbor, I don't know. So I wanted you to be familiar with it. That easement is there for a purpose. It's for a very important purpose. And let's keep this in mind as we go forward. And let's do everything we can to keep that intact, because if it goes away or if it gets developed on, the Corps of Engineers has stated that East Pass will fall out of their priority, and they probably won't maintain it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tadlock. Appreciate your time. Next. Yes, sir. Can you just please state your name for the record, sir?
My name is John Harvey, and I live here in Destin. I moved to your city 6 months ago, and I lived near Washington, D.C., and I thought I got away from the gotcha. I moved here and reading in the papers. You know, I think we're losing sight of civility in this country. And I think that one thing that should apply here is the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. And I just think that, you know, somebody who makes honest mistakes should not be, you know, drugged through the dirt. Okay? And just remember this, I am registered to vote. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Appreciate your comments. Next. Okay, seeing none, thank you so very much for coming out tonight. We're honored you're here. Don't forget those that need to be involved in the LPA meeting later this week. With that, this meeting's adjourned.